If this was a photo, it'd be fair to say it's not very flattering. For starters, look how stark the lighting is. It's like the woman on the bed is illuminated by the surprise glare of a camera flash. Her skin is jaundiced, flat, there are no shadows. She's basically the colour of a 3-day-old corpse. No offence to her. In fact, if it wasn't for the heavy black outline around the body, you wouldn't be able to tell where her skin ends and sheets begin. She looks a bit like a paper cutout that's been stuck to a pre-made background, and her eyes, well, they're not exactly full of life. But, as we'll explain, that's all kind of the point. The woman's name and the painting's name is Olympia. Painted by Édouard Manet in 1863 and unleashed upon the Paris Salon 2 years later, to say it was controversial would be an understatement. The exhibition was chaos. Grown men, respectable men, attacked the canvas with their walking sticks, forcing gallery staff to move it higher up the wall, closer to the ceiling. Critics branded Olympia a female gorilla, a lump of dirty yellow India rubber, and an embalmed monstrosity, which, seems a bit rude. So what was it exactly that got the mob so riled up? And how is it that this painting basically shattered the foundational mechanics of Western art? Well, first of all, we have to go back in time by another 500 odd years. Titian's 1534 work, Venus of Urbino, pretty much set the bar for the reclining nude. Notice how the deep perspective and soft tones put the viewer at ease, make them feel welcome and relaxed. At the foot of Venus's bed is a sleeping dog, a symbol that was understood to represent marital fidelity and domestic obedience. Fast forward to 1863, and Manet effectively took this blueprint and ripped it up. In Olympia, he flattens the room entirely. Heavy dark green curtains droop by the bed, creating the sense of a claustrophobic shallow space. It's as if the viewer is trapped in the room, and it's not a fun room to be in. At the foot of Olympia's bed stands not a sleeping dog, but a black cat, its back violently arched. The tail points upwards, bristling aggression, and the yellow of the eyes sticks out amongst the shadows. In the streets of 1860s Paris, the word chat not only meant female cat, but it was also understood to be vulgar slang for, female genitalia. In contrast to Venus of Urbino, Olympia's bed looks like it needs a good tidy-up. The sheets are unbleached and the fabrics clash. The stark white of the linen does no favours for that yellowish hue of her skin. This is not supposed to be a goddess. It's a portrait of a working-class Parisian woman engaged in the brutal commerce of the flesh. Every element of this room services a transaction that requires a very specific courier emerging from the pitch-black background. Look now at the woman stepping out of the shadows. The critics of 1865 ignored her, maybe even willfully. In their reviews, she may as well have been invisible, but she's not invisible. Her name is Laure. Apparently, she lived at 11 Rue de Vintimille, a rough third-floor apartment just a short walk from Manet's studio. Her presence firmly places this scene in the recognisable grit of the French metropolis. You'll see that she's in a pale pink dress. It marks quite the contrast compared to Olympia, her presumed employer, who is, well, as you can see, wearing nothing at all. A head tie binds her hair. She is dressed for labour. She approaches the bed bearing a big, chaotic bouquet of flowers. They may look nice, that satisfying blend of reds and greens and whites, but see how they're presented? They're in cheap, flimsy florist's paper. Compared to Titian's Venus of Urbino, where the plant on display was a bush in a sturdy, neat pot, it feels like Olympia's got the slightly rougher deal. The clear indication here is that these flowers will rot away and die very quickly. Laure acts as the link between the off-canvas client and the worker on the bed. Her presence in the painting forces us, as the viewer, to acknowledge the grim logistics of the sex trade of the time. She, the black maid, is servicing the white courtesan, and the white courtesan, in turn, is servicing the unseen, hidden, presumably white and wealthy man standing just out of frame. Olympia's eyes are on that man. They're on us. We, the viewer, we are the client. She's not even acknowledging the flowers. It's like they represent the intrusion of sentiment where it isn't wanted. This is not an intimate marital chamber. This is a room of business where the only important thing is cold, hard cash. Olympia, by the way, is actually Victorine Meurent. She was an accomplished painter in her own right, and her own canvases were shown at the Paris Salon alongside Manet's. Manet may not have glamorized her skin or her surroundings, true, but what he has done is paint her as an active, switched-on collaborator in their setup. She's not cowering from the client entering the room. In fact, she kind of seems in control. Professional, even. Her steady gaze, her heavy eyelids, her pursed lips. It's like she's saying, "Hi, come on in." She has a red orchid behind her ear, a thick gold bracelet on her wrist, and pearl earrings dangling from her ears. She's definitely made an effort. But most importantly, you'll notice there's a thin black ribbon around her neck. Visually, and not to be too graphic here, but it's like it decapitates her. It emphasizes the difference between the active business-minded head and its commodity, the body. Mid-19th century viewers would have recognized this ribbon to be a symbol of the courtesan. Modern historians also leave the door open for it to have another, more grim interpretation. At around this time, Paris was in the midst of a brutal syphilis epidemic, and there is a sad possibility that these ribbons could be used to mask the lesions of disease. So given that this painting conjures up the atmosphere of both a morgue and a brothel, with critics actually complaining that the white woman looks unwashed, it's no surprise it was so controversial. But there's a part of this painting we haven't touched on yet, and it's the most important and explosive element of all. Look at the placement of the left hand. In Titian's Venus, the goddess's hand is rested softly on her thigh. There's a coy invitation in there, and it gives the illusion of modesty, like she's gently permitting the male gaze and submitting herself to the fantasy of whoever's looking at her. Olympia's hand is presented very differently. Look at it. It's like a firm, definitive barricade. The fingers are exaggerated, like the palm is literally clamped down against her thigh. It's this detail that the critics of 1865 got themselves most worked up about. They called it toad-like, which again feels quite harsh, but the impression you get is that Manet painted the fingernails deliberately dirty, and that black outline we've already mentioned only highlights it more. The impression, therefore, is that despite the inviting look on her face, and despite the attention Olympia is giving the client at the door, she is not giving away the one thing the observer would expect her to. At least not until she's been paid, which, fair enough. In presenting Olympia this way, Manet forces us, as a viewer, into the role of her client. We are in the bedroom. We are the ones who brought her those basic flowers. We are looking at a woman who feels absolutely no affection or sentimentality for us. In basic terms, she's just a businesswoman waiting to be paid for her services. You want her? You want to ogle her, to feel like you control her? You want her to submit to you? Then quite frankly, you need to cough up the cash. With that simple hand placement, history was made and outrage was sparked. The French bourgeoisie came to the salon expecting to look at yet another example of a demure, willing, idealized female form. Instead, Manet forced them to look at their own reflection. He turned the viewer from the master to a pathetic paying customer. The harsh lighting, the rumpled bedding, the cat with its phallic tail standing on end, it all adds to that stark effect, and that one rigid hand is at the centre of it. If you fancy a copy of this historic, conversation-started painting in your own home, there's good news. You can buy a reproduction right now. Olympia can be bought from viewcrypt.com. So go on, treat yourself, hang it up in your hallway. It'll certainly make an impression on any guests you have round. The link is in the pinned comment below. See you next time.